Bonjour, animation fans, and welcome to the AFA podcast, the official podcast for animationforadults.com. My name is Rachel, and joining me today is Nina.
Hey, hello.
And Dan.
Hello.
Hey, guys, and we're really super excited to bring you today's episode because Nina was very fortunate enough to have an opportunity to go and spend some time at a really super awesome festival that took place I think it was last weekend, or just this past weekend. That is the French Animation Festival in New York City. So we're going to kind of let her take a bit of the floor here because this is only the festival's second year.
Yes.
It debuted last year in 2018, but this is their second year, so we've got some new films, new workshops, new guests to talk about different types of animation coming out of France, and it, from all accounts, I hear it was really super good. So Nina, why don't you kind of start us off here? So how did the festival compare? Because I know you said you only had opportunity to see the opening day of the festival last year, but you had a chance to see a lot more this year.
Yeah, it definitely is worth going to more than just the opening night. There's just so much content. There's so much programming. It's kind of overwhelming. Like on Saturday, it was just like I from 11 a.m. until almost 12:30 in the morning the next day, I was just watching animation nonstop.
Oh, wow.
It was a lot of programming. They really packed a lot of really fantastic things in there. So yeah, it was definitely worth to go more than just the first night. Though the first night was a wonderful way to start off. It's Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit of a smaller set. Like they had some workshops in the morning that I wasn't able to go to because I was working.
Mm-hmm.
But for the official opening night, we opened with Kirikou and the Sorceress, which was the sort of breakout film by Michel Ocelot.
Oh, yes.
Who was the guest of honor at the festival. He was there to present the film. He was there throughout the festival. He presented a lot of stuff, which is very amazing because he kind of reinvigorated French animation at the time with this film in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never seen it before, so it was really, really neat to see it. It's a very fun film. I didn't know anything about it, but it's very delightful.
It's bonkers.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
It's so good. It's very good. It's very good. I love that.
It's really good. It's really funny and humorous, and the characters are really Kirikou himself is just such an infectious character from the moment he births himself into the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a story.
That's kind of all you need to know about him, is that he is the type of character to give birth to himself. He's not taking anything sitting down.
No.
Wow.
So the story, if you don't know, it's based on African folk tales. I don't think one in particular, but it's kind of bringing together a lot of sort of African folktale traditions. And it's about this village and this little boy who's born kind of prematurely. He births himself. He's like, "Mother, I want to be born now." I'm like, okay. And in the village, there's this sorceress, in the title, who's just making life miserable for everyone in the village. And Kirikou takes it upon himself to do what he can to solve the problem. And he's this very, very tiny baby, but he talks and walks around and can run really fast. And they go on all these little adventures, and it's just really, it's gorgeous. And the Kirikou actually, it was all of the promotional materials for the festival was Kirikou themed, the passes and the augmented reality poster and everything was
oh, wow.
where he's in front of this large palm frond. It's really gorgeous. So that was a really great way, I think, to open a festival. The music is so good, and everybody was just in a good mood. All the kids in the audience were dancing and just, laughing, and they thought it was a good time. I think a big reason why the film wasn't, I didn't know about it, is because there was a lot of issues with distributing it in the US because all of the women in the village, they don't wear shirts. They're just going around bare-breasted, which the US has issues with.
Yes.
There was a little documentary that they were showing with Michel about the film where he, talked about how much he had to fight to not cover
Yeah,
that.
when they released it in the US, they had to replace all the nipples with guns, right?
Oh my gosh.
If only.
Localization.
Yeah, but it was really, and then there was also a very short in the beginning of that. It was like a highlight from Bordeaux, because the city of Bordeaux also sponsored this festival and was very much heavily featured, because the city of Bordeaux hosts a lot of production of both video games and animation.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the opening film. It was great. It was not 3D this time, which was nice, so I didn't have to worry about my glasses being broken like last year. And then there was the opening reception to just kind of celebrate the opening of the festival, and then they had the return of the erotic shorts from last year. Which were also very good. Really fascinating, like, a collection of films, the kind of subjects that you don't normally see. There was actually a short that was really interesting, that they found a short from 1934 called La Joie de Vivre. Like, I'm sorry, my French is very bad, but it was this really interesting erotic short from like the early 30s. And that was a really neat highlight. So it was really like films from like, the late 20 teens and then something, early 30s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was quite a batch of films. It opened with a very comedic film that I think everyone really liked, but then the other films were kind of more serious, or more like, very, very French approach to like romance and sexuality and so on and so forth. So that was the opening night, and it was a fantastic start. And then Saturday for me was like the big day. Like that, I was literally there from morning till the morning the next day.
Jeez.
Whoa.
So yeah, it was a lot. So the first thing I saw was another Michel Ocelot film. It was the first thing they showed. It was the Ivan Tsarevich and the Changing Princess, which was a film that was made in, when was it made? It's not listed on the program here. Just
I'm looking at some of the pictures. That's very beautiful, stylized look.
What's it called?
Oh, I guess it was in 2016. It was a more recent one of his films, Ivan Tsarevich and the Changing Princess. So this film, because Michel Ocelot, he's done a lot of work with like shadow puppet cutouts and profile sort of films, and this is sort of a continuation of that love for him, but he's, instead of using like physical puppets, it's like 3D CGI animation or like digital animation of but sort of mimicking that kind of like shadow puppet style, with where all the characters are like mostly in profile and they're all blacked out, but it's done using digital animation, which is kind of interesting. And it allowed for some more detail. Like he was saying when he introduced the film that he didn't want everyone he wanted to like let's really go flat. Like, let's go as flat as possible. Like, let's not be afraid of flatness. So it's basically a film that's like 4 short stories, like kind of fairy tale short stories, because it seems to be a reoccurring theme of his work from just what I've seen so far. One's like a Indian themed, one's like in the Middle East, one's in Russia, and it's just like princess prince stories.
Okay.
Stories. It's like it has this framing device where like there are these 2 characters and they're like putting on this play and they like try to come up with more original takes on these kind of stories. And it was, it was a nice way to open the next day. And then from then on, I was also in attendance was Yvonne, who's also a member of AFA, but she was doing like more talking directly to people, where I was just kind of the one sitting and watching everything. So I believe she went to go see the documentary short series, which I did not get to see, unfortunately. But instead, I saw Only Yesterday.
Oh, yeah, because you had not seen that yet, had you? Or
No,
had you seen it already?
I've never seen it. And the reason why it was shown at this festival, it's not a French film. It doesn't really have any French affiliation, but Michel Ocelot, he presented it because he and Takahata had a working relationship. Isao Takahata had done a lot of work translating French poetry, and because he before he was an animator, he like studied French literature. And so when Michel Ocelot like showed Kirikou for the first time in Japan, like he met Isao Takahata, and they like created this working relationship where Isao Takahata, he did the translation and the dubbing for like all of his films from French to Japanese. And that's sort of why like he's in, they're related, and obviously it was like an homage to him since he passed away last year. Yeah. And this was one of his personal favorites. My only thing about seeing this film was, for whatever reason, it was in English, which I wasn't a big fan of the English dub of this film, to be honest with you. Yeah. I was a little confused as to why it was being shown in English. I thought at first it was because they wanted to use French subtitles on the bottom, but they didn't. So it was just in English, and the English dub is kind of maddening. Like, Daisy Ridley is the main character, but she's using an American accent, but then the main, like, male lead is using a British accent for some reason. He's a British actor. But none of the other characters have a British accent, even though some of them are from the UK. And it's just very odd and distracting. Like, I feel like they should have either just, like, let it be a mix or just picked one or whatever.
So there is a reason for that.
Okay.
And I gotta say, I don't like the dub either. I think it
kept bringing me out of the moment.
It's a noble failure. But essentially, apparently, like the original Japanese version, there are regional dialects or accents in the film that
makes sense.
Make each character seem slightly different. Like the farmer character has a more whatever country accent is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they tried to approximate that with the dub.
But I feel like I that's what I thought they were doing at first, like when he was introduced, and I was like, oh, okay, so these country folks are going to have like a different dialect, and it's just going to be, UK accents. But he was the only one. It wasn't like any of the other folks in the countryside spoke.
That's
with
really weird. I gotta say, I don't know if I remember Dev Patel doing. Is it Dev Patel?
Yes.
Okay.
Dev Patel doing an English accent then. Maybe he was trying to do an American accent.
I think that's what it was. I think he was trying to do an American accent, and it was very bad.
The thing I do know is sometimes distributors try and push a preferred version of the film. So, like...
I'm sure that's probably...
There's that. And also, maybe, like, at the festival as well, they knew that there would potentially be younger audience members who.
But they were showing all the French films in French with English subtitles, and
that's kind of strange. Well, the only thing I can think of then is maybe G Kids.
That's probably
push the dub a bit more when
it was just a bit unfortunate because to me it really. I didn't feel like I was able to really enjoy the film for what it was, because a lot of their conversations were just so awkward and unnatural. But the child actors were very good, and it is a beautiful film. It's definitely, it's a slice of life, slower paced film, but it's a beautiful concept, and I really do want to see it again. It's just a shame about that little that thing. But whatever.
A little distraction.
Yeah, that was the thing that ruined it for me the most. Is it was just distracting. Like I kept being brought out of the immersion, which I think is a shame. But whatever.
So you watched any yesterday? Are we up to lunchtime yet?
Yeah, I kind of like scarfed food down in between things. I think I went to have lunch after this film. There was like a deli nearby, and I just got some food, and was able to take a little bit of a break. And then they had the best of the Annecy shorts, which is
right.
So these were amazing. They definitely are, best of the best. One of these shorts we did talk about the last time you were on, Dan, Weekends.
Right.
Was shown here as well, which is was nominated for best short film at the Oscars. It was good to see it again in a big screen. We had Hybrids, which is actually a film we showed at Annie. It's the 3D animated film about like sea creatures that are like kind of mixed with trash.
Right.
Like,
I recall seeing
fish.
that for the Best of Fest, I think, last year.
Yeah, it made it into our Best of Fest last year, and it also was nominated for Annecy. There was a film that was also shown in the erotic shorts. It was called Bikilisti, like Bicyclists. Which is this, it's this silly kind of horny film about bicyclists trying to win a race. Let's see. There was Inanimate, which was a really neat short. It was a stop motion short, but it kind of had a meta aspect about it where the main character realizes she's in a stop motion film and is losing it. And there's this really neat scene in the short where it kind of like zooms out and you see the set of all like the little miniature sets and all of the puppeteers and animators working on the sets. And that was kind of a really neat little thing to see. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it was really neat. I really liked that film a lot. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just don't know if I want to talk about every single individual film. There's so many, but it was fantastic program. So one of the main features of the festival was the Pinscreen instrument, and the Pinscreen instrument is this thing that, let me just make sure I get all my names correct here.
Okay, gotcha.
Because it's this piece of historical, it's this piece of film history, not just animation history, but film history. It was developed by husband and wife team Alexandre Alexiev and Claire Parker in the 1930s. Alexandra was a Russian expatriate living in the U.S., and Claire Parker, or Canada, I guess, and Claire Parker was from Canada. And it's this device that they created, and it's kind of hard to explain. And they had it all throughout the festival. They actually you could do workshops with it where you could actually like animate with it, and like they would send you what you made home. And it's like, it's like those toys where you press your hand into like these plastic pins and it kind of makes an impression.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a metal one. I had one that was like real nails that they'd like shaved to be blunt, and I used to love like putting my face on it, and it would go all cold.
That's kind of the basic principle of the Pinscreen. It's made with actual like sewing needles, sometimes up to like thousands of sewing needles into like this little box screen, and you push them in and out, and you create these values of black, white, and gray. Because the shadows of the pins cast like black, but then when you push them in and out, you can create this really wonderful, rich gradient of grays and blacks. Because Alexander, he was originally like an etcher, like he did like etches and imprints and things, and then he wanted a device to kind of let him do that more quickly, so he just developed this machine, and it was like his thing. And he made these films out of it, stop motion films where you kind of press into it and then you take a photo and then you slightly alter it. So it's like a form of stop motion.
Okay,
but
gotcha.
it's very amazing. And so I got to see it in action, and it's just there. The thing about it is that after he passed away, it kind of like fell into obscurity. Like there were some people working to preserve it and like preserve the art of using this device to create animation. And recently there's been a bit of a resurgence where there's been preservation efforts to keep one of their, they have one of the original screens that he and Claire Parker built. And there's been efforts to like learn how to rebuild these machines and like, and make more movies with them. But there's very few of them. There's like only one guy who knows how to make them, and he was there at the festival. And people, I remember I was in the line and somebody was like, "Oh, so can I buy this?" And he's like, "No, I made this." No, you can't just buy it and make your own movies with it. Like there's only so many of these things, and I make them. And like the old school ones, like they're really complicated. There's like beeswax and like you have to like clean each needle individually. Like that's why they call it an instrument, because it's like owning like a really vintage violin or something that you have to maintain. And as an animator, you have this relationship with this board. So they had a selection of short films made with this device, and there was some of the original Alexandre Alexeiev films from the early 30s. And then they it was the chronological order to his, the person, Jacques Drouin, was a French man who kind of was like a apprentice almost. Like he kind of kept the instrument alive for decades by himself, basically. And then in recent years, there was a couple other films that were made also by French animators and artists. So this is a really interesting story. His grandson was actually there, and he did a post-screening Q&A, and he was telling us about, you know, what it means for him, or what it meant for his grandfather to make these films, and how it was sort of an expression of his lost past from Russia, and how he tried to like recreate the childhood of his memory, or even how he first came up with the idea. He said that apparently he was shaving and was looking at sort of the shadows cast on his face from his beard, you know, the individual hairs of his beard, and was like, what if I can recreate that? And apparently like that was the impetus to create this thing. So it was really amazing. And these films are really unique if you've never seen any of these films before. I had seen one in an animation history class called Le Nez, or The Nose. It was based off of a God. Sorry.
That's all right.
Oh, I'm looking at videos of this Pinscreen animation thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell it is. I still can't.
It's really difficult to wrap your brain around. You really have to see this thing.
I'm seeing it. I'm watching someone use it as a demonstration, and I cannot figure out how this is easier than drawing or like.
Well, what it does is it allows you to create like really rich, like etchings, almost like really rich darks and shadows very quickly. You know, normally if you draw that, like you have to spend a lot of time shading, you know, whereas here
okay, I see.
And they're dreamlike films. That's sort of what they were talking about, and that was the impression that I got. Like I was actually kind of being lulled to sleep by them, partly because I was tired, but partly because they're just these. They're expressions from the subconscious. Just the nature of the film, because it is literally an impression. It also is sort of like the artist's impression of like whatever's on their mind. And Alexandre Alexeiev, like he originally wanted to like animate music. So the first film they showed, which was Bald Mountain, Une Nuit sur la Mon Chave, or so, like the musical piece, was it was stunning. Like, it's unbelievable to think that something like that was made in 1933. It looks like
it's crazy,
3D.
that film.
It looks 3D. Like, you see this figure, like, rotating 360 degrees, like doing this front flip, but it's so three-dimensional, because it is, in a way, three-dimensional, because it's a physical shadow. Like, it's real depth, you know, not just like an illusion of depth, like a drawing, but it's like actually shadows. And the editing of that film is such an amazing work. Like, I was stunned, and I was like the first one. And like, there was another one that he did, like L'Inez is great, and the Tableau d'une Exposition was also, it's like a family portrait, and it does this thing where like this whole screen will like rotate, like the frame will just like move and like rotate again, like 360 degrees, and it's like, how in the world did you do that in 1970 whatever, like with this machine? Like, it's incredible. It's really hard to describe, but there's a lot of emotion in these films, even in the later ones made by other artists. Here in The Great Elsewhere by Michel Lumiere, it was like this meditation on life.
Oh, wow.
And it was all these short little vignettes of this man and like a room and like space and time and what makes people and genetics, and like, it's all very abstract. All of these films are very abstract, and the instrument lends itself to that abstraction and dreamlike nature, because you're dealing with shadows, more so than physical things. So
that is so wild.
I know, like, it's amazing. And if you've never seen any of these films, I really recommend them. I'm sure some of them, are royalty free at this point. You can.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize that Night on Bald Mountain was Alexiev's film, because I saw that ages ago when I was a student.
Oh, really?
And it's such a weird, trippy film. I had no idea it was made with this.
Yeah, it's so
insane object that I just can't get my head around.
And it's also like a very personal film, because his grandson, Alexander Rockwell, was saying how like his grandfather didn't really know what he was doing when he sat down, or like what his intentions were. He was just like, I'm just going to make images and see what I create. And he just kind of put, with Claire's help, of course, Claire Parker is definitely his right hand in making these films. Like, they had like a code, like they immediately were so in sync using this device and making movies together. But he just kind of like put whatever made sense. Sometimes like ideas that you have that don't even like, you can't even really picture in your mind, you just kind of have to doodle it out. But instead of doodling it, you press it on this thing. And there's a sequence in that particular film where there's this white horse that like falls and like becomes this skeleton, and it's really
on Night on Bald Mountain.
Yeah, on Bald Mountain.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, and his grandson Alexandra Rockwell was saying that that's like a metaphor for Alexiev's own father, because he lost his whole family in the war and lost his whole life, and so much of that loss and that trying to grasp what he could remember as a child and this world that was taken away is built into these movies, which is why they're speaking from like the subconscious. It's just stunning. Like, I can't recommend them enough. Like, it's bizarre. It's unlike anything you'll ever see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that more films are being made with this thing. I want to see more of them, because like, and when you saw the progression, like the craftsmanship, it just got better, and like the fluidity of the movement just got more amazing, but it's still the same device. It's just...
No, there are some images I'm seeing here where I'm like, hang on, that's a film. That's not handmade.
Yeah, you're like, no, that's a person. Like, this is just like a color grading. What are you like? And it's like, no, it is. Like, it's unbelievable.
Now, definitely make sure to leave, because we have the list of the films right here. That on the website of the festival, they have a whole list of the films that they screened in this style. That's Pinscreen, Pinscreen animation. So I'll go ahead and make sure that any interested parties listening to this who want to explore this, and like you said, per your recommendation, I'll make sure that they have access to at least have the name of the films, and I'll see if I do. You said that there's a chance I might find them online. If I do find any of these,
it's possible.
Online.
Maybe the older ones, not the newer ones, most likely. The newest film was actually a 2018 film, and it was like a New York premiere, so that probably you won't be able to find, though it was stunning.
Mm-hmm.
It was,
well, Nenenbaum Mountain, the one that we're talking about, that was 1933, I think, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
1933.
So I'll see if I can find that one at the very least.
That was like around the same year that he created the device, and that's probably one of the first films that he made with it.
Okay.
Wow, it's so interesting that it happened in the 30s as well, because that's when, like, that's like a decade. Yeah, but it's also like a decade around the time of like German expressionism in film was really kind of kicking off as well.
Mm-hmm. For sure. No, he was not just a important figure in animation, but an important figure in filmmaking, as an experimental filmmaker. So that was wonderful. And then right after that, I saw Funan. Funan is the film by Dennis Do. It came out last year, and it's been kind of sweeping the festival circuit for good reason. We're probably going to do a more in-depth episode about this in the future, I imagine, because it's going to be distributed by G Kids. So
right, yes, that is correct.
Mm-hmm. So I won't go too much into it, I guess. But I was very much not prepared for this film to be what it was about. I was just kind of like, because when I would sit down to watch whatever I was going to be watching, that's when I would read the description and go over and write some preliminary notes and clean up my previous notes. And then I was reading what this movie was about, and I was like, oh no, this is going to be very intense. And it was.
Oh dear Lord.
Very intense. But it's also a stunning piece of filmmaking. Like, it's about such an ugly event, but the movie itself is beautiful. Like, it looks beautiful. And Dennis Do himself was there. He had flown just for this screening. Like, he had flown the night before and like just arrived in time and was going to fly back to Paris the day after. But he spoke a lot about it. And if you don't know what the film is, it's set 1975 under the Cambodian Khmer Rouge regime. And it follows a character who's pretty much his mother, the director. It's based off of his mom and his older brother and their experience under this regime and what they went through, which is basically they were separated and were trying to get back together and escape.
Oh wow! Oh my God!
It was it's a communist regime that kind of sprung up in response to everything that was going down with like the Vietnam War and American influence and everything. The thing about the film, though, is you don't really need to know about the history. Like, he doesn't really focus on the politics or who the leaders were and what their ideology was. It's about the human element, like what happened to the people, what did they experience, what was their reality during these 3 or 5 years, and the background, the colors, the character design is such a beautiful balance between being somewhat, it's animated, so it's stylized, but it's also realistic enough, and it's just like a perfect balance where you can really feel these people as real people, but then when things get violent or horrible, it's not too it doesn't show you everything. Like, that's one of the things he does as a director, is he doesn't really linger on the violence. Like, it's not gratuitous. Like, he will cut away, but you know what's happening, right? Yeah. And one of the big conversations during the Q&A was like, why did you make this film the way you made it, i.e., why is this movie animated? And his first answer was just like, well, I'm an animation director. That's just the movies that I make.
I love that response.
He's like, that's what I make. I'm an
A Wonka makes chocolate. I make animated films.
Exactly. But, the more whatever, like, proper answer, I guess, is that when animation, it gives you a certain level of control that live action doesn't have. For instance, like if he was going to make this film, he wanted it to be all Cambodian actors, and to have that happen in live action is very difficult, because who is going to fund that? Like, who is going to invest in a film production like that, other than just people in Cambodia? And then it would have to be made on a low budget, and then who's going to distribute it, who's going to watch it? He was saying that animation is a universal language. It is. It's like, I've shown this film in Japan and France and America now, and there's no barriers in that way. Like, the movie can be shown anywhere, and everybody can understand what it is, and it can be representative of what it's supposed to be, and I can control that. It took the movie, I think he said 9 years to make, or 8 years, because they just kept running out of money. Basically, they kept having to wait to continue production. He said, if you kind of put the production end to end, it was a year and a half, but there was just all these periods where they had to, this whatever studio, because he said it was 3 different countries, 4 different animation studios that worked on this film.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So, it took a long time, and he said from the moment he was an animation student, it's something that he wanted to make, because it's this very personal story. I mean, and you're watching this movie and the director is in the room, and this is a movie about his mom, who we know is a real person. And it's very, it adds this extra level to the intensity and the tragedy of what's happening, because you don't feel so removed from the people, especially when he's literally right there. But I mean, when you guys see it, we can definitely talk more about it, because
I really can't wait. I've had my eye on it for ages, because they released a kind of a proof of concepts a few years ago, probably to present to investors to say, look, we can make this film. But yeah, it's cool that you say it's as good as it always looked.
It's stunning. There are certain shots that I can't get out of my head.
Oh, that's a good film.
So well composed and so brilliantly done. And there are also certain it's yeah, we can talk about it when we talk about it, but
yeah, I remember being the first couple images I've seen of this film, you were talking about the background shots. That's the first thing that's been catching my eye when I've been looking at any kind of promotional pictures or images from this movie. It's just the beautiful depth of the backgrounds and the lighting too.
Yeah, he said that he wanted the land itself to kind of be a presence, because Cambodia is physically a paradise, and yet it was turned into a hell. And he wanted the nature to dwarf the humans, and then he wanted humanity to dwarf nature.
Oh, wow.
And he does that with shot composition. So sometimes they're just tiny little figures in this amazing landscape, but then there's also a lot of close-ups and really close-up shots where there is nothing but the human and what they're feeling and what they're doing. So it's just so brilliant. It's so brilliant. But you definitely have to be prepared.
Bring tissues.
Bring tissues. Don't plan to do anything immediately afterwards, I would say.
Okay.
I would say just watch it and then go home.
Think about it.
You didn't have that luxury, because I don't think that was, at least from the sound of your Saturday, it sounded like there was at least one other thing you had to do afterwards.
Yeah, and I had to immediately be I can't cry. I have to write notes about this interview. I can't see if I'm crying. So yeah, but it was such a privilege to have this experience. I'm very grateful. Even if just there's so much amazing things I saw, but just if it was just Funan, it would have been enough, I think. But after that, I think there was like a short break. Yeah, there was a little bit of a break, and I got some food. But then there was a late night chills festival. It was a Nuits Magique festival selection. I'm probably butchering that, but it's more highlights from Bordeaux. I think it's an international animation festival based in Bordeaux and one of the oldest of its kind. Many of these shorts were produced in Bordeaux, but not all of them. But Bordeaux is just constantly screening shorts. It's unlike anywhere in the world. I kind of have to go there now, I guess. But so yeah, it's another short film program. But all of these films are kind of surreal and weird and dark, and the kinds of things you would watch at 10:30 p.m. until 70 minutes. So it's like got out at like 12. The kind of films, it's a fantastic program. I think probably one of my favorites because they were just all so weird and memorable.
Very surreal kind of, not really like the subconscious kind of stuff that you were talking about before with the Pinscreen.
Yeah, but also like more experimental and like, but all different mediums too. Like there was this one film, The Night of the Plastic Bags, which I really liked. It was this
interesting title.
Yes, it's about this couple. This woman is trying to reconnect with her ex-boyfriend because she wants a child. But while that's happening, the world is being taken over by plastic bags that are turning people into zombies. And like, it just goes to some really crazy places. I don't know if you'll ever get a chance to see it.
I'm just trying to picture what that would look like right now.
Well, it's the art style. The colors were kind of muted, kind of like a monotone, and the characters had very like thick lines, almost like very thick black lines.
Okay.
And then the plastic bags, they just kind of like grab onto people's bodies and like suffocate them or like mutate their legs, and like meanwhile, she's trying, like this guy is like trying not to die, and like she's like, please, let's reconsider. But then it has this good like emotional climax where they kind of like get at the heart of like why the relationship failed, but then it's like too late because the world is being taken over by plastic, and it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle in one film, but
yeah, it's a really good film. And there was also this film called My Husband the Octopus, which was a really fascinating like metaphor about a relationship that's rather unbalanced. It's literally what you're seeing is a woman comes home and she has like an ocean in her apartment and there's an octopus and they're married, but he's a very demanding, needy octopus and kind of suffocates her, like almost literally drowns her.
Oh, geez.
But yeah, God, these films were something. Some of them are kind of indescribable, honestly, but it was, especially because it was late and I was quite tired, but I can only
imagine.
But it was very worth staying late and getting home very late or I guess I got home at like 2:30 in the morning. So, but it was worth it. These films definitely were worth it. And I feel like the neat thing about the way the festival was set up is that you could have like a full day pass or you could buy like a ticket bundle. Mm-hmm. So you could pick specific things you wanted to see. And so every film had its own unique audience. Like it wasn't always the same people going, except for me. So like the late night chills kind of attracted like a more like younger 20-something audience of people. So it was kind of neat seeing how the audience changed depending on what the films were. So that was Saturday. And after that, I needed a break.
I can only imagine, yes.
I slept in on Sunday, so I missed the first two films, unfortunately, that they showed Sunday morning. Robinson and Campagne, and then White Fang I wasn't able to see, unfortunately. But I was there for the Swallows of Kabul Work in Progress panel.
Okay.
So this is a film. Co-directors Zabu Breitman and Elia Gobe Melier were there, and also a character designer. Were just making of the film. They showed like a preview. They showed what it was like their pitch clip they used to get more money.
Mm-hmm.
But it was complete. They showed us like character turnarounds and background inspiration. And this film is based on a graphic novel by Yasmina Khadra of the same name, The Swallows of Kabul. It's named that because at this time in Afghanistan, the women, the full body covering was this pretty blue color that looks like birds. So that's what it's referring to, the women of the city of Kabul, basically.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's gorgeous. You know how like people say like, oh, I wish the movie would look like the art book. This movie looks like an art book.
Like a living, breathing art book.
It does. Like the
So has it been made?
It's almost done. It should be released this year. I think they're probably just in post-production right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's the same producers of Trip to Belleville, Ernest and Celestine.
Yes, it's the Ernest and the character designer shoot from Ernest and Celestine. From that film, and did the art or the art direction as for this film. The visual style is like. Sorry.
No, sorry. The feed keeps cutting out, and I can't tell. Sorry, carry on.
Oh, that is okay.
Never mind.
The visual style, it has this overexposed lighting, like it's sort of watercolors, but then with like heavy inking, but then like very overexposed lighting. Like the characters are very highlighted, and they really pop out of these environments, which are also very kind of have this bright wash of light over them. There's not much in the way of shadows.
I'm looking at that right now in the feature image that they have on the website, and I can already pick it out where you have all the women in their blue cover-ups, and then you have like that, you said that wash of light.
Yeah, and the film is about two couples, an older couple and a younger couple, and they didn't go too much in the plot. Like the woman in the older couple, she is ill, and so she has to resist in a interesting way was the way it was put it. And I haven't read the graphic novel, and they didn't really focus too much about it, but they did show this one really cute clip, and it was of women living under the Taliban with these cover-ups in like a rock band. And that was like a inspiration for them. See if they like showed the clip, and it was just like this really delightful thing where they were talking about the song is about the burqa. It's like, I wear the burqa every day, or like whatever. It was just really, it was neat, and they actually used that song in some of these clips that we saw. The panel was a little all over the place, which just might be why my talking about it's all over the place, because they spoke in French, and then I had to wait for the translator, which could only say so much, and then there was some technical difficulties, unfortunately.
Oh no.
Broke things up a little bit, but it was worth staying throughout the whole thing, because we did actually get to see some fantastic scenes, including the fact that how they made this movie is they cast all the actors, and they weren't just voice actors, they were body actors. They basically filmed them acting all of the scenes in their costumes, because that's how they gathered the sound and the Foley was by actually recording the actors doing the things that they had the women wear the burqa so they could know what it would sound like when you're like ruffling it around and all that stuff. So all these actors they recorded them doing, and there's some level of improv with the script because they wanted them to really feel and embody their roles. And so that's why the animation is so detailed. Yet they were also saying how they didn't want it to be, as far as like the quality of the animation, the style of the animation, the women making it, they didn't want it to be like constantly moving. Is how they put it. Like they didn't want like a frenetic energy. Like they wanted the movements to be sort of like slower and deliberate. Like they didn't want to focus on like all the various movements that happen when you do something. Only like what was necessary, and how that was kind of hard to train the animators to do because animators are just not really how they think. Also, the art style made it very difficult because it's like similar to Funan. It has this realistic style that's also exaggerated in a more comic booky, I guess, kind of way, or graphic novel kind of way. So
it's weird how much it does look like. If you said, "Hey, imagine the people who made Ernest and Celestine in a slightly fuller, more realistic style made film."
Yeah,
it's kind of like
what it is.
Like you said, like watercolors, but the characters pop and nice lighting and everything.
Yeah, and so
apparently it's directed by two people. It's directed by Zabu Breitman.
Yes, this is her first animated film she's ever directed.
Yeah, because it's interesting what you're saying about like they got the actors to physically act out their performance because she's an actor originally.
Mm-hmm.
So she probably brought a lot of her ideas about performance to the film.
Yes, and I think that's also why they sort of wanted to make it more focused on the characters' performances versus just like animation for animation's sake.
I mean, I get. I mean, sorry, not to be like down on it at all, but like
no, like I I'm
that
just
sounds like kind of obvious to me. Actually, there's an old Richard Williams like lesson where he's like, lots of animators think that because their job is to make things move, then that making things move all the time is them doing their job, and sometimes like the best sound designers are the ones who know when a sound, soundscape needs to be really sparse rather than, lay it up with all bells and whistles. It's the same thing for animators where it's like, you're actually sometimes doing your job if you're doing nothing.
Yes, and I think that was what they were trying to emphasize with the feel of this film in particular. At least they mentioned that quite a lot during the presentation. So, that was what they were going for. They wanted to have these moments of stillness just as much as movement, because it
comes across in the trailer.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
and I don't know. It's just I really want to see this movie. Now that I've seen all these kind of floating pieces of what went to making it, and I just want to know what it looks like. So we don't have a date. We just know it's this year. I don't know what that means for international distribution, if that means it's going to just be released in France this year, or if they're going to be able to release it in the UK or the US or whatever. But
I'd be very surprised if G-Kids didn't pick it up.
Yeah, they didn't have. I don't believe they have picked it up yet, but it seems like something they'd pick up, right? So we'll see. But yeah, so that was very exciting. Like when we were watching just the film, I was just like the clips. I just wanted to watch more, and that's how I knew it was good, because it was like when it was over, I was sad because I wanted there to be more. Then after that, I caught part of Michel Ocelot. He did his own selected shorts program of just some of his favorites or ones that inspired him. I missed, I think, 2, but one of the ones I missed was one I've already seen before. It was The Hand by Juri Trinka, which is a fantastic stop motion film by a Czech stop motion director who's like huge Czech
A
Republic.
master.
Yeah, he's a master.
Yeah.
Jiri Trinka. And the hand is a brilliant piece. But there was Rowing Across the Atlantic, which was a 1978 film, which is kind of what it says on the tin. It's about a couple who decide that they're going to prove that they can row on a rowboat across the Atlantic, and as their like relationship devolves and they age into very old people and a lot of things happen. There was a 1948 film called Le Petit Soldat, or The Small Soldier, which was like, again, like a late 40s style film, which is always fun to see in these kinds of festivals. I think when you go to like modern film festivals, you assume to see newer films, but it's always cool when somebody brings back like an older film.
Yeah, it's great, and then also you see it with an audience, and you see, that like reaction can be really valuable.
Yeah, it is, because it shows you just like how, we think of things from like the 30s and 40s, like, oh, that was a long time ago, we've come so far, but like honestly, the things that animators and filmmakers accomplished at that time is just as remarkable, if not more, than some of the stuff we see nowadays. And so that was a shorter program, and then right after that was the comedy shorts program. So this one was more just some nice lightheartedness, which I definitely could have used at this point in the weekend. There was a lot of it was this series of films that the Athleticus, which was a Nicolas Devue's. It was a TV series about the Summer Olympic Games, but with animals. So they showed like 7 of these shorts throughout the other short films, which they're just these 3D films about animals doing Olympic sports, and they're quite delightful. There's one with the turtle who's trying to race flamingos. That was really endearing. Another one of these films we had featured in Animation Nights New York. It was called Voyagers, which is a 2017 film about like a hunter hunting a tiger who manages to get launched into a space station, and they cause a ruckus, and it's really funny. It's great. It's out there. But the animation's also really good because there's a lot of zero gravity stuff going on with like this tiger and there's humans and like a fish, and it's a lot. There was one film that was super dark. It was like, what was it called? Because all the titles are in French, but sometimes they're not in French when you're watching the film. I think it was Wild Love was the title. It was like really, because there were like kids in the audience for a lot of these programs, and sometimes I thought maybe it wasn't the most appropriate thing to be showing kids, but I guess the French have different ideas about what a kid can see and what they can't see. But it was just this couple who goes on a hiking trip, and they accidentally kill like a muskrat, and then they all decide all the muskrats band together to murder these 2 human beings.
Oh jeez.
Like at one point they like prop up the dead body of one of them to lure the other one in.
Oh my god.
Very morbid. Like,
I mean, I know muskrats are vicious little things, but damn, that's taken it to a whole new level.
It was a lot. And I was like, there was like children in the audience. I was like, oh, like that would have scared the pants off of me. I was little. There was a lot of stuff that was quite upsetting that would have scared me as a kid, that there was kids in the audience and they were taking it like a champ. So I was like, wow, European kids are different.
Yes.
Strong. And then after that, we had the closing reception. And then we ended the night and the festival with the César nominated shorts.
Okay.
So I can talk about all 4 of these because there's only 4 of them.
Okay.
Well, they showed a couple runners up, but so the César Awards are France's equivalent to the Oscars, if you don't know. And these are the nominees for the 2019 César Awards. So these are the best films best animated short films according to France, as opposed to the ones according to the US, right? Mm-hmm. So we had Between the Shadows, which was it was a stop motion film, but it was used with live actors. So you have the actor and then you take a series of photographs of them acting out the scenes or whatever, and then edit that together to create a stop motion film.
Okay, gotcha.
And it was basically a noir story. There was a lot of fun things happen. It was on the logistics of filming this film is kind of difficult for me to wrap my brain around.
Oh yeah,
because there's a lot of scenes and a lot of sets, and it's 15 minutes long, and there's a lot of stop motion happening, not just with the actors, but with the props and the sets and the doors and the story is very simple, but the execution is very excellent, which is probably why I was nominated. The Death, Dad, and Son was also screened in the Comedy Shorts film program, and that's a short film about death and his little kid.
Oh!
Have you heard of this one?
I feel like I have. I'm trying to remember where I've heard
They're
it.
like little skull people. Right?
Yes. Yeah, little ghosty skull people. And the son wants to become a guardian angel. Yeah, it's very silly. And he goes off. It's kind of morbid. So the dad, he goes off to work to oversee everyone dying. And then the kid stays home to watch cartoons. And he watches a cartoon about a guardian angel. He's like, that's what I want to be. He writes a letter to his dad, like, I'm sorry, Dad, I'm running away from home to be a guardian angel. Aww. And he goes out to the world. He makes himself some wings and a halo. He paints himself white and tries to be a guardian angel. And he makes a lot of mistakes. And it's very kind of sad but funny at the same time.
Dark humor.
Very dark humor, I would say. But it's also, it's a really delightful picture. It looks really good too. I think it's stop motion or with maybe some 3D integration. I don't quite recall. Then there is a full stop motion animated film called Raymond or the Vertical Escape.
Whoa.
Which is about this owl lady in the countryside who's an elderly woman and she's a virgin. And she really, really wants to be in a relationship and lose her virginity. And she prays to Mary, and she's followed by these saints, female saints, in her imagination who are guiding her towards her purpose. And she's has this little farm, but then she also mails out panties to Japanese businessmen for money. And the stop motion sets are gorgeous. The character, they're all these anthropomorphized characters. The little environments are so quaint and cute, you want to live there. But she's really a lost soul, she's desperate, and she's lonely, and she just doesn't understand why this is happening to her. And I thought that was going to be my pick for the best, because they did a thing where they let you vote on which film you think was going to win.
Oh!
And if you win, February 22nd is the César Awards. It's the 42nd awards ceremony.
Yeah.
And if we get it correct, I guess we're eligible for a bottle of champagne that they'll send us.
Oh, nice.
So we'll see what happens. But I think the last film is the one that's going to win. It's called Kötü Kız, or Wicked Girl. It's a Turkish-made film by a Turkish animator, but it was produced in France. And it's really heavy. It's about this little girl kind of telling you about her life and her grandparents, and it's 2D but very sketchy. The director drew the whole thing, more or less. He animated the entirety of the film. I think that's what I read. And it's Turkish. It's this little girl. She's talking about her life, but then every once in a while she mentions something that's really unsettling and weird, and you're like, what? And then she'll go back to talking about like, oh, you know, my grandparents said if I eat all my tomato paste bread, then I can have dessert or whatever. And then she'll talk about like these monsters and they're doing these bad things and like how she hates them. And you're like, what is happening? And the film eventually goes to a very dark place where it's about sexual abuse of children.
Oh, dear Christ.
In Turkey. Yeah. Which I think I've seen another short film a year or two ago that would cover this topic, because apparently it's a huge, quite an epidemic right now. And it, you know, it doesn't like show anything, you know, it's tasteful about it, but it's
okay. But a lot of it is still implied.
We know what's happening. I mean, we know what, you know, there's a point where like one of these monsters like picks her up and like takes her, and, you know, and we know what's happening, right?
Oh my God.
What's going to happen, right? And it's a lot. And I think, but it's just very well done. I was reading about the film later on, and the director, he was really struggling to get a child actor to do the voiceover for the film, because most parents like didn't want their kids associated with it. They didn't want them to know what it was about.
Yeah.
So he managed to find one girl who did a fantastic job, and basically the caveat was like, you know, she can't see the film.
Okay.
And the script is written in such a way where if a kid just read the lines, they think they're just telling a story, you know? They don't really know exactly what it is. So it's very powerful. I think I think it's the one that's going to win, because it speaks to a truth in a way. Like, you know, we've heard these stories before, but there's something about the way it's expressed with these small vignettes, and the way it builds up, and the way it kind of leads you into this false idea of what it's about. Because, you know, I've seen many an independent animated short film where it's like about a kid, like, and it has like a kind of sketchy, almost like crayon drawing style, and you think they're just like having a tantrum or something. There was actually a film like that earlier on in the Michel Ocelot selected shorts called Siente. It was just about like a little angry girl, you know. So I was thinking it was going to be something like that, and
then it turned out not be.
It turned out not to be. It turned out to be very, very not. And then. And then the curators of the program showed their personal favorites for the year that they thought should have been nominated, which aren't listed in the program, I guess because it was supposed to be a surprise. But one of them was La Chute, or The Fall. And that film was the last film screened at this festival. And it was quite a mind breaker. It's like... It's like you go into like a Goya painting, but like one of those really dark ones, you know, where like everybody's like looks really threatening for some reason and you don't know why. And the way that the film works is it has like, it'll show you a cycle of animation of like a scene, and then it'll kind of like move the camera and show you another scene that's cycling, and then it'll like zoom out and you see all these cycling scenes.
Oh, right.
And it starts off of like on Earth, you know, like humanity coming from the Earth, you know, it's about like the fall of humankind. So it's like all humanity is like coming from the Earth and we're living our happy little lives. And then it slowly turns into just this absolute hell. And the sound design is so horrible. And it's like you feel like you're dying.
Oh, wow.
Eventually, you know, the character, it shifts to like actual hell, and like all these people are being tortured and there's all this violence, and it's just the sound design of this film is amazing. Like what it does to you, because it's kind of an abstract movie, so it's a little difficult to describe because it doesn't really have like a traditional plot or characters, but it was quite a way to end a film festival for sure.
Yes, start off happy with that first movie and then really feeling like, what did I just watch? I feel like I need to go lie down.
Yeah, I feel like I've had a horrible, horrible dream. And like, I remember going to Yvonne and I'm like, oh. my heart was like actually beating really hard. Like I was getting like anxiety because it was just so uncomfortable. Like it was designed to be so uncomfortable, and I was like, "Oh, Yvonne, that was a lot." And she's like, "Yeah, that was crazy."
It seems like the kind of experience is like watching, oh god, like The Rite of Spring, like the Stravinsky thing, where it's just like
very
this
similar,
is just like a mad ritual, and you're going to sit here and watch it.
Sit here and take it while people dance to death
and go mad watching it yourself.
And like the credits were rolling and the music wasn't stopping, and I was just like, I just need this song to stop. I just needed to stop.
Like just as soon as it stops, then you know you're okay and you're good.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I can breathe again. Like I exist. I like the curator. She said that was her favorite, and she just thought it deserved to win. And I understand what she means, because it's a very powerful piece, but it's not enjoyable at all.
It's intense.
So yeah,
it's a one-time watch kind of thing.
I would say, but overall, I was just so thoroughly impressed with the quality of the films and the content that was shown in this festival. It was such an amazing gem in the city. I don't know how many people are aware of it. I mean, it is brand new, but it's hosted by the French Institute of New York City, which has a lot of programs and does a lot of things, shows films, but also like has French classes and wine classes and other things. But I think this is a really remarkable festival that they have, and I really, really want them to keep doing it. And I really am excited to see what keeps coming out of it, because there was also like other things I didn't even do. Like there's a lot of augmented reality, and there was video games,
VR. Yeah, I was looking at that earlier.
A lot of VR, a lot of workshops I wasn't able to go to. Like it's dense, but also I don't think it's overwhelming. Like you can definitely just sort of pick the things are more interesting to you, and you're gonna see the kinds of content that you really wouldn't see anywhere else. The French are known for throwing their money at really weird art endeavors, and it's really neat to see that manifest, and like just the volume of things being made, really weird things that would be really hard to pitch anywhere else in the world, just being made and being made really well is just so encouraging and inspiring. And it was just such a privilege. And I was, I'm going to be processing a lot of this stuff for a long time, because it was quite a lot. But
yeah, because people talk about like certain countries that promote or do like a lot of promotion in regards to the animation art. And I know when most people think about, like, at least in regards to the general populace, I'm not talking about people who have a lot more history or knowledge about what other, certain countries who are going the extra mile to promote animation. But the ones that have the biggest boom, or at least the most worldly recognizable, would be here in the US, which would be, Disney and such. And such productions, and then you'd also have Japan with Japanese animation and anime, and how that's become so widely distributed. So it's interesting that stuff like French animation that gets. I mean, obviously there are certain shows that have come out across overseas that have been dubbed French television animation, such Miraculous Ladybug is one such show, and a bunch of other ones that I've seen over the years. But this kind of stuff, this kind of like feature film animation and short animations and stuff like that, like people don't talk about that very much, at least not in general circles, or they don't know, and they don't even know.
Like Despicable Me is a French co-production.
Right.
Like the Minions are French humor. If you want to understand what the French find funny, like at least as far as like more juvenile stuff, like the Minions are very French.
And I was blown away by The Girl Without Hands. I think it was. I'm trying to remember if that was last year or the year before. But I had an opportunity to see that film from this website to write a review for it. Because it was a G-Kids release, and I was blown away by that film.
Is it based off the fairy tale?
It is the exact same fairy tale, yes.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
It was very, very well put together, and I was very happy that I had a chance to see it because I hadn't seen anything quite like it before, and I'm so glad that these films that you had an opportunity to see kind of have this opportunity to be seen by more people with this festival. So I thank you for all your stories and sharing all that stuff with us. Cause I mean, I'm still just trying to wrap my head around the Pinscreen stuff, man. Like, I'm right there with you, Dan. I'm looking at it. I'm like, what in the heck?
I like some of this definitely looks like a photograph, but then it's kind of moving, and it's like some of the movements like looks animated, and some of it kind of doesn't look like it's animated. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's wild.
But it sounds like a great festival. Like I'm kind of bummed that I missed it.
Great. Like I do really recommend it because I feel like, you know, the French have their own way about a lot of things, and I feel like their filmmaking and their approach to animation is unique. It's very unique, and they also co-produce a lot of productions from other countries.
Yeah, in Europe, like there's a great spirit of like banding together to make features.
Art, you know, and it's like these aren't always the most marketable films, you know, and yet like it doesn't matter, you know. It's not about it's a completely different philosophy than like the American production system, for instance,
where it has to reach the widest audience possible in order to be any type of successful.
Well, it's more
in indie film, you kind of just have to budget it yourself almost, you know, like
it's more like the old spirit of like word of mouth releases, where it's like like if this is good, then people will talk about it and more will come.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Spiderverse was one such way. I mean, everyone was impressed. I mean, if I may go back to that real quick, because this film is my obsession, so I'm sorry.
It was going to come up at one point.
Because, I mean, everyone was interested, like, from the very first teaser of how it looked different. And people talked about that a little bit, but, you know, you don't have a good feeling of the film until you see it, right? And then as soon as it was released and people, that first theater group went to see it, it began spreading like wildfire, and to the point where I think the number of people that have seen it reflects how much it's reached its audience. But still, I think even though some of these films, like you've mentioned, Nina, are perhaps maybe a bit on the intense side, that you might not be willing to seek this out for another viewing necessarily, but there's still films that are worth being seen just for what they do differently and what they do really well.
Yeah, and you know, you're gonna experience something that you've like. When I got out of the CSAR screening, there was like this young kid who was like, "I've never seen anything like this in my life." You know? I was like, "This is insane," you know, and it was like,
"Well, a kid's mind."
That's an amazing response. That's an amazing response.
It is, and it's true. I mean, I because of my work with Animation Nights New York, I'm a bit more familiar with the indie scene. And you know, we screen a lot of French films and European films, even like indie American films are totally different than commercial animation, you know, like it's a different world and it's a different form of expression. And I think, you know, I don't know for certain, but I think part of like the French's influence as far as they're making films is they also have a very rich graphic novel and comics culture, and I feel that kind of plays directly into their animation culture, because French comics are very unique, right? And they have a different approach to paneling and storytelling and abstraction. There's definitely more space for abstraction and dealing with difficult concepts, and like storytelling that doesn't have to be like a 3-act structure, you know, it doesn't have to have main characters. But sometimes it does, like Kirikou, and that's really fun too, but it's still different. And I think if you haven't watched any French-made or French-produced anything and you like animation, you're really missing out on a whole world to discover and enrich yourself with.
Yeah, if you're not sure, I think Kirikou is a great starting point.
Yeah.
Because, I love that movie. I saw it first when I was a student, and it was kind of like, what's this thing? It looks really weird. And then it is really weird, but like you said, it's also like entertaining in lots of universal ways as well. Yeah, no, I love that movie.
It's a very good movie. And yeah, I'm very grateful to Brian, to the curators of the festival, to the French Institute for hosting this, or to the city of Bordeaux who partnered to host this. This is fantastic. Like, I can't recommend it enough. I think it's a must. It's definitely something that shouldn't be ignored. Even though it's a smaller festival, I think it has a lot of staying power. It's going to become quite a voice in the animation circuit.
All right. Well, thank you so much for again sharing the story. And again, thank you to the folks at the Animation First Festival, everyone that needed is named there. Thank you so much for providing the opportunity to go see that festival and see all these amazing films and workshops. And everyone who's listening to this podcast right now, if you have not had a chance to attend Animation First, obviously this festival has just passed, but then mark your calendars down and look up their website. I'll leave the Animation First website in the show notes, so you can keep an eye out for when the next festival date's coming up, so that way you can book in advance.
These films for yourself, because they're going to be shown in other places. You could probably find them in other sources, so definitely, if any of this stuff stood out to you, look into it and see if you could watch it, because when Funan comes out, please watch that.
Yes.
When Walls of Kabul comes out, watch that, like, for sure. Yeah,
we'll be keeping an eye on Funan, because like I said, G-Kids are going to be releasing that, and we have a good relationship with G-Kids, so we'll see if we'll be able to get that bit more in-depth coverage on that at another point in time, but we'll see how that turns out. But in the meantime, I was looking through the entire the website for the Animation First Festival, and a vast majority of the films, I think if not all the films and short films that were presented in the festival is listed there. So if you again want to make a list of those films so you can track them down and see where you can find an opportunity to see them, that will all be included in the show notes. So just go ahead and scroll down and take a look at that when you're ready. But I think that about does it for the Animation First coverage. So we might go into I think we've got a little bit of time left. I just want to double check. Are you guys willing to keep going a little bit more, or you think we gotta wrap this up?
I would like someone else to talk, though.
Well, yeah, you've talked for a while, and
I felt like this was the Nina show, So.
No, but you handled it beautifully, and
yes.
You really, really wonderfully described, like,
Brava.
it sounded like, an amazing festival. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yes, thank you.
This feels very ceremonial.
I was like, oh, yes, I saw it.
Okay.
Speaking of ceremonies, segue, there was a ceremony, as of the time of recording this episode in particular, a certain ceremony just took place last night, about 7 p.m. Pacific time, I believe, and my time here on the East Coast, that was about really pretty late at night. I can't say what time it happened, for you, Dan, over in England.
I used to stay up to watch these. We're talking, of course, about the coronation of Satan, right? I used to stay up to watch the Annies, and I don't anymore. Like, I think it stops at like 4 a.m. for me.
Yeah, it's like ridiculously early, so at the point I was like, why even bother? But just hear about the award winners the following morning. But I made the mistake of trying to stay up for a few hours, at least until a little past midnight when the ceremony was still going. But after a while, I'm just like, I need to sleep. I need to get up for relatively early to next morning. So I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't stay up any later. But I am glad that I stayed up for at least the early portion of the Annies, because they literally started off with the new category that they were promoting for this particular ceremony, which was the acknowledgement of the VR shorts.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's the brand new category that they added specifically since VR has continued to evolve and become. They have a lot of really great shorts that came out this past year. One of which I think we talked about previously, which was oh gosh, why is the name now? Of course, now not coming to me. Something Sail, First Sail.
Age of Sail.
Yeah, that one. The very same.
Oh,
that was
when we last spoke about that, I made a boo-boo.
Oh, you did?
I said that the director made another short film about a father and a daughter in their car. It wasn't that director. That was Patrick Osborne who made that short.
Okay.
Because Patrick Osborne, who made Feast, made it.
Yeah. Okay.
And John Carr's. I got confused because they were both ex-Disney guys.
Mm-hmm.
But John Carr's is the director, of Paperman and Age of Sail.
Okay, Age of Sail.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay, so the Age of Sail I know was nominated, but it didn't end up taking the best, the award for the VR shorts. It was but the Age of Sail did receive an award. I'll have to go back and double check which one that was, but it did win a particular award, and I'll go back. But I think the virtual reality, if I may, I've got the list right in front of me, so bear with me while I try to get my mouse under control. I think it might have died on me, so I think I might be stuck. So I think we might have to.
Well, you got to go to the trusty page up, page down.
Yeah, so the little
keys
bumper here. Slowly scrolling up.
Wow, this is some suspense that you
I know,
buy.
It's crazy. They have all that listed on the top. Let me see if it's on the bottom here.
So what one?
It was a particular VR short. It was about, I think it was about a Native American, let me see, story. It was called Crow the Legend, I believe was what it was called.
Oh, okay. Like the figure in folklore.
Yes, exactly. Okay, and so here I found what Age of Sail won. That was Outstanding Achievement for Production Design in an Animated Television Broadcast Production.
Oh, that was TV, was it?
It was, it was basically the smaller screen television or broadcast production, which would this.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
That. So it was competing against Disney's Mickey Mouse, Nico and the Sword of Light, and The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, which is interesting company. But there's a lot of, to the surprise, I don't think very many people, Spiderverse did exceedingly well. Again, winning quite a few. I mean, obviously it won the best animated feature film, as well as winning character animation for a feature film. And let me see what else we have here. Character design. And let's see what we else have. Directing as well. But even there were some that obviously Wreck-It Ralph got a lot of props for I think it got for special effects. It got an award for that, and I think Isle of Dogs walked away with an award too. I think is for the voice acting.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that. Well, it was nominated for
voice acting in an animated feature production.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cool. Oh, it was to Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, because
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the voice cast of that film I knew from the moment we were getting promotional bits of it, like, the voice cast was just stellar right out the gate, so that doesn't surprise me at all.
Mm-hmm.
Music and storyboarding for a feature animated film went to Incredibles 2, which I was really happy about, because the music in Incredibles 2 is phenomenal.
I still haven't seen it. It's on Netflix now.
Yeah, so if you have an opportunity, I would recommend at least giving it a watch.
It's good. I watched it again recently, and I think it really holds up.
Any scene with Jack is amazing. Let's see, what other winners did we have coming out of here? They're all winners, really, but let's see. Hilda.
They're winners.
Hilda got a lot of props, and I'm kicking myself for the fact that I have that on my Netflix watch list, and I still haven't had a chance to really properly start this.
Same. Like, I was gonna start it, and then I think someone called me, and then
you forget, and then you just and then you go back to your Netflix watch list, and you see the picture pop up, like, oh right, that's a thing I meant to watch.
Yeah.
And then something like I will tell you one of the reasons I've been primarily distracted once we get there, once we've wrapped up talking about this, because I will just want to explain myself a little bit. But yeah, even stuff like the Mickey Mouse shorts have been continuing because I know that's been ever since those things started, they've been getting a lot of praise, and for the right, it's because they are so well done.
All deserved. They are so
They're
good.
Like, way better than they need to be or have any right to be. But they're like, no, we're just gonna knock these out of the park. Like Mickey Mouse is funny again? What?
He was never funny. That's the thing. He was never funny.
And now
they've made him funny, and they've actually like given him a real like character. And or like at least like really strengthened his character.
Yeah, like they're all so funny and like delightful. And the production is just
I think they have a lot of staff who worked on Wander Over Yonder working on them, actually.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense because Wander Over Yonder is just a gem. Was a gem.
One of my like favorite storyboarders at the moment. Eddie Trigueros won a directing award last night for those shorts.
Ah, yes. And I believe there was a tie as well. I think for actually
he tied. Yeah, it was in the storyboarding one. Oh, it wasn't. Sorry, it wasn't him who won for storyboarding. It was someone else. It was. Oh goodness, Ramos. No.
Alonso Ramirez Ramos.
Exactly.
Okay.
Person.
Yes. That very person.
That very person tied with a Kevin Molina
Ortiz, yeah, who was the storyboard artist for Nickelodeon Animation Studios for Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Which is such a good show, by the way. Like, I'm behind
on it.
It
is such a good show.
It is,
and it's
way better than
the storyboards are insane. I haven't actually seen much of the show. I think I've seen like the first couple episodes.
The staging of the fight scenes is insane for TV animation.
I will admit, I will have a little mixed feelings about Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because, I mean, I will give credit where it is due. It looks fantastic. The fight sequences are phenomenal. And
I think I know what you're going to say, Rach.
Yeah. And I am all for changing up character dynamics if it makes sense. I don't know why, but there's just something about the way, like, certain aspects of the characters that I just, for some reason, rubs me the wrong way. Maybe I just haven't given it enough.
You can't get on board with April being black.
No, shush.
No.
No.
That is not the problem.
April O'Neil's really great. She's so cute.
Okay.
I love April's design.
I like that they're more distinct, though. They kind of can blend together. I love that Rob Paulson is the voice director and casting director.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Ray. It's a shame because, like, I know that the previous show had lots of fans, and it's a shame that, like,
but it wasn't perfect. I acknowledge that it had its fair share of problems. Like, I'm not holding any particular show featuring these characters as like the epitome of what it should be because when you get down to it, there isn't because it's
exactly
it's going to have people are going to have different interpretations of it when it changes hands because again these are very marketable toys and characters, so everyone's going to have a very different interpretation of what it should or shouldn't be. So it really just depends what resonates with you.
Yeah, you have to update it with the modern times and the way young people talk. Cowabunga is not a thing people say.
It's not a thing people say anymore. No, I totally agree. I mean, even the Booyaka Shah that they updated for the CG show in Nickelodeon is more passé now than it was.
That just makes me think of Ali G.
Whereas, the turtles talk like young people on the internet right now, and I kind of
They do. I won't deny that. It's just there's just something about the way that they made, like, it definitely, at least maybe when the show premiered, it sounded like you could have interchanged dialogue between any one of the characters, and you'd be able to say, like, who's saying that? And it's like, oh, Leonardo talks like Michelangelo, or Raphael talks like, doesn't talk like Donatello necessarily, but they're all, in terms of the joke delivery, it seemed like it was like you could interchange.
I see. So it feels like everything's written by the same person instead of them each being their own character.
That's kind of like the gut feeling that I have when I first tuned in that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But like I said, I am willing to give credit where it's due and give this show another shot if they decide to like start really giving these characters, unique sounding voices again.
I'm sure later on in the season it will find its feet.
Yeah, I mean it's still brand new, so that's something it's gotta hit its audience first. So I'm hoping that maybe like if much like with certain shows that I didn't end up liking in the beginning, but grew on me later on. Steven Universe was one such show that it didn't really land with me until after it had been out for its first season. So I'm praying and hoping that maybe that my single gripe with Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles will fade. will either fade or be rectified at some point, because I do want to get on the board the Nickelodeon train and all this wonderful storyboarding and animation that has come out of this show that everyone keeps telling me about. It's like, oh, you should definitely watch it. I'm like, I know, but there's a little bit of hesitance after that first watch. So I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm ready for this yet. But yeah, again, props to everyone, nominees and winners alike, and especially like Spiderverse, which did super duper well. And even some of the different, like the smaller, the awards to individual artists, the Winsor McKay Award winners. And I think there was even a sequence earlier on in the show where Brad Bird came out and did a posthumous award for one of the artists who worked on The Incredibles with him. Mm. And they were dedicating a new program to find, promote better ways in order to get these type of animated films to kids in staying in hospitals. No. And they named the award after him, which was really it was a nice little presentation, and they were able to invite the guy's family up. And I'm kicking myself that his name's not coming to me right now because I'm the worst with names.
I think I know who you mean. I unfortunately saw news about his passing a few. Is it Frank Braxton?
Frank Braxton, I think he was the first African American animator.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
that's okay. No, I remember him because when they were showing features of his work, they were showing like the Fractured Fairy Tales opening, which I remember. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. Let me see.
Is it Adam Burke?
I think so. Hold on.
Yes, I think it. Yeah. He died last year.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, and I think Brad Bird tweeted about it last year.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's all coming back to me. Yes, that was him, Adam Burke.
Sorry, Adam Burke. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a nice presentation. I like that we had those posthumous awards for these amazing people and learning. Especially I had little to no knowledge about Frank Braxton, but then I saw the work he had done on Charlie Brown, and also the Fractured Fairy Tales and George of the Jungle. I remember watching those cartoons that being my introduction to animation outside of Disney. So that was big. I recognize all of these things, and I had no idea who was responsible for them. And I didn't know he was African American. So I was that was really. I'm glad I got to learn something new about stuff that I grew up with as a kid. So thank you, Annie Awards.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to have, and that it recognizes all aspects of the industry, because there's no such thing as auteurs in animation, and sometimes we forget that.
Yeah. And I will say there was something else cool that I learned through Annie Awards last night, because they did have a award for video game animation, and what won the award of some stuff that I already knew about was or expected to show up was there. God of War was there for character animation, as well as Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man video game that came out for the PlayStation 4. That got on there. Cool. It was nominated. What ended up winning was this beautiful little video game. I have actually never played it before, but I'm very curious to seek it out. It's called
saw that on Twitter.
It's called Gris. Gris. And look at it, and I'm just first I thought it was wait, is this a animated short? But it's just the character animation of the player character, and it is absolutely some of the most gorgeous bit of video game animation I have ever seen in my life.
Oh my god, it's stunning.
Yeah, I need to find this game, and apparently it is available.
On Nintendo Switch.
It's on Nintendo Switch, and it's also on Steam. So if you do not have a Nintendo Switch,
cool.
you can play it on PC.
I finally gave in after 2 years of holding off, and I got a Switch.
Oh, nice!
So
I'm gonna be
I might check it out.
Soon.
I
had my brother reserve one from his, because he works at a used game store, so he was able to reserve one that came in without a dock for like $170.
Whoa!
So please,
perfect.
I want it.
Oh my god! I was just immediately. I've lost my entire week playing Zelda.
I know, right?
Which I'm not mad about at all.
No,
but I'm mad at my behavior. Like, I think on Friday I was up until like 4. Just stuck in Zelda. Crazy behavior.
This game looks really good, and it
looks beautiful.
That anyone can play, because it says it's a serene and evocative experience, free of danger, frustration, or death.
Yes, and those are the kind of games you need.
That's the game, that 2019 needs.
Yeah.
Yes, it really does. And I mean, also shout out to all the other nominees for that particular category, because God of War's character animation was very good. I didn't play the game, but I did see a lot of the animated scenes, and the character, the in-game character animation was very well done. Spider-Man, I can't sing enough praises in terms of it being the fact that it's a Spider game and just a fun adventure game in general. Moss, I have not heard of, but that got also a lot of awards, or at least was a lot of nominations this year for being not just a game, but a virtual reality video game. That was really well handled. And
cool.
I know Chris is going to love this, but Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the latest Tomb Raider game, got on here for character animation as well, which is, again, haven't seen too much of it, but at least the couple scenes that I have seen are very well done. It's like you can definitely tell there's a good combination of motion capture as well as some basically handcrafting over the data that they get for the motion capture. If I'm talking about that right, if I'm completely talking out my ass, again, I apologize. What the hell is she talking about?
I can't say. We'll have to see.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be an angry comment somewhere down this chat or on Twitter. It's you didn't this is how this actually works in developing this kind of video game animation. Be great, now I know.
Oh, I mean, I'm excited to, people getting mad at how I butcher French continuously. I'm very bad at French was the class I was the worst at in all of my studies, in all of my years of school.
Yeah, same. It's tough. I mean, look, you gave it a real good shot.
Thank you.
And that's all that matters. As I once drunkenly said at uni, it's the counting that takes part.
I need to remember.
Can we make some AFA merch with that phrase on it?
Okay, I need
it's
to,
the counting that takes part, yeah.
Yeah. Just write that out in our chat, and then I'll find a way to market that.
Please.
So, I mean, I am full of them. I think the other day I called oven gloves kitchen hands. Because I couldn't think of the word and I needed them urgently.
I mean, it basically gets the basic idea, so I give you
kitchen hands.
I mean, yeah. I know what you're talking about. I mean, it's all that matters. If you understand what's being communicated, then you haven't failed.
It does sound like I'm a foreign exchange student, though. I'm kitchen hands. Yeah. So that's the Annies, right?
That's basically the Annies. So again, I'll leave a link in the show notes here for because I've got the direct link to the Annie Awards website where they have the entire list of both the nominees and winners. So if there's anything that you haven't seen or maybe are not aware of that this was covered in these nominations, definitely check them out if you have the opportunity, whether they be a video game, short, or a feature film. But I think that wraps us up for the Annies. So I am going to make a tiny bit of a confession why I've been kind of quiet over these past couple days. Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, and that's kind of...
yeah, I forgot about that crazy bag of batshit. Insane. Yeah. I forgot how insane these games are.
No, they are.
Oh my God.
They are absolutely bonkers, Dan, and I've been enjoying every single mind-breaking minute of it. Especially, like I can definitely tell like there was some extra care that went into those the Pixar-inspired levels because oh my God, they are a joy.
It is
insane.
Such
a joy.
Also, I mean, I think even just like the Hercules level as well, like
yes,
blew me away because that's like the first Disney level you get into in the game.
That's literally where they drop you into it. It literally starts with like.
Oh, so they actually have a real Hercules level now, and not just the boring Colosseum.
No, yeah, you explore the city of Thebes. So it's as Hades is using the Titans to set it on fire. And then you.
It's like the third act of the movie. Basically.
Yeah, and you run up Mount Olympus. Except you don't have the only thing that they took out was the whole like Meg is dying thing. They cut that part out because Meg is absolutely fine. So it's a lot more comedic, meaning that it's a better way to start the series of the last chapter of this trilogy.
That works better, I think.
It's more about the Titans and that stuff, which is the best stuff anyway. The Titans are amazing.
Yeah, and I mean they show off all four too.
Or the Hydra. I like the Hydra that he fought.
That was the second.
Hercules a lot.
That was in the
Hydra
second game, right?
Second game, yeah. Hydra was the second game, but the Titans were kind of more like special feature bosses in like some of the earlier games. But this game basically goes balls to the wall at the very beginning. It's like, oh no, you're going to fight all four of these things. You're going to start with the Rock Titan, then you're going to have to fight the Frost and Lava Titan at the same time, and then round it out with the Tornado Titan, and then you who I have to say I love because it looks like it's just so depressed the entire time you're fighting it.
Yeah. So, Rachel, I got to ask you something then. Now we're talking about Kingdom Hearts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If you guys are going to do that, I need to use the restroom real quick, but you can keep talking about Kingdom Hearts while
okay, yes,
Nina is Nina is so excited that she can't contain herself. Okay, so Kingdom Hearts, right? Yes. I played these games when I was a little boy. And I lost like an entire 2 summers to the first game and the second game, right?
Yes.
And I could kind of follow them. I mean, they were kind of crazy, but I kind of got what was going on. I didn't buy Kingdom Hearts 3. My housemate did, actually. But I've been watching him because these games are just enjoyable to watch as well.
Yes.
Anyway, so I've been watching him play it. And we've been sat there just like, hang on. Have we missed something? Because I wasn't aware of them relying so much on the interim games.
Welcome to the world of Tetsuya Nomura, who basically drops important plot details on like the mobile game and the.
You shouldn't. I'm actually like. The thing is that the game is so beautiful, and the combat is still pretty engaging. Like I love the rides.
You're the best part.
The boat. I like smashing Heartless with a boat. With a pirate ship. But the thing is that like you can't do that. You can't expect me to play a mobile game.
No, I know.
Like I honestly wasn't prepared. I thought that it was going to be like we'll pick up where Kingdom Hearts 2 left off, and for everyone who enjoyed that, like it was basically filler, right? You know, like an anime season where they're like, cool,
think that
stuff was fun, but that was filler, and now we're back to the main story. And suddenly they're talking about like, oh, this isn't the real Organization 13. And it's like, hang on, have I missed something? Like,
yeah.
It's really, I just wasn't prepared for how dense it is.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts is one of the most, because Tetsuya Nomura struggles with writing linear plot lines.
No kidding.
He basically was like every single like interim game. I think he might have tried this in order to either fix plot holes like he introduced or like in earlier games, or basically just tried a way to keep the fandom like tied it over until 3. He was able to make 3. He kept dropping little snippets of stuff that would be important, and one of the biggest plot dumps was in like I think it was the game that tricked us into thinking that it was Kingdom Hearts 3, but it ended up turning out to be Kingdom Hearts 3D Dream Drop Distance, which was I mean, like, for God's sake.
Have you guys seen that Polygon video video that Brian David Gilbert made.
Yeah,
about
that was good.
Yes.
The one where he makes the hero's journey and then
with Kingdom Hearts, and it's just all these cycles and cycles and cycles.
But yeah, I don't blame you.
No, that was really good because there are so many bad hero's journey YouTube explainer videos, and I thought that it started off like it was going to be one of those, and I was like, oh well, he kind of seems like he's done his research here, and then he starts like interrupting it with like, oh, and here's like another loop, and we'll put that in between parts 2 and 3.
Like, this is the loop.
And then he unveils
Tetsuya like development process of the story of this thing.
Yeah.
But there was another one which I ended up watching, which was like a 30-minute everything you need to know about Kingdom Hearts before playing 3.
Yes.
And I didn't really. Me and my friend watched it before playing Kingdom Hearts 3, whilst it was, installing.
Yes.
And I didn't know that there was so much plot in between 2 and 3.
Oh, yes.
And I got bored. Yeah. I checked out of the video and I started eating a Kit Kat. Like, I was just like, cool, great. Tell me when it's finished installing, and I'll jump into Kingdom Hearts 3. But
Dan was like, give me a break of that Kit Kat bar. This is boring.
Yeah, it was boring, and I think it's we just he I think there's a certain age age group which is like the time at which you are most open to RPG bullshit.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think
accept it, like, of course this is how it is.
Those are the ages when I first played these games, and then like now I'm just way past that. So like my friend jumped on the other day because he just wanted to get to the Toy Story level.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which is gorgeous. And he was like, cool, well it's 11 p.m. now, so I'll just I think I can probably get to the Toy Story level because I saw that I'm nearly there. And we sat through like 40 minutes of cutscenes.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And it was like, oh, cool. And like Mickey Mouse is like, the voice acting is kind of shaky.
Yeah.
And he's also given like, I know people have complained about this, and I know it's a style thing, or just how these games are. But the pauses in between each line of dialogue
is painful.
And the dialogue itself just makes me.
Has it? Oh man.
It's actually, I'm okay with saying it that it's bad. I love the game still. I love it.
Yes.
But the dialogue and all of the dialogue scenes are bad.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. Maybe it's just I'm able to forgive it for all the stuff that I do love about it, but it's still like as a writer, speaking from a writer's perspective, yeah. No, it's atrocious.
No, but this is the thing though about the game is that like it's so good that despite those scenes,
mm-hmm.
like it's still amazing.
Oh God, like. Now that I know that you're playing it, I kind of don't want to spoil things for you because I was going to mention a scene in one of the later Pixar worlds that just really just made me just like squeal with glee just because I just had to watch it on repeat because it was just it was beautiful and it was funny. It was good physical humor, which is just, it's when you have Disney characters, you need it. Do you want me to mention it?
No, maybe save it because I'm enjoying seeing it unfold. Actually,
I'll just give you a hint of what world it takes place in.
Monsters Inc.
Monsters Inc. Yes.
Yeah, I thought so.
Oh boy,
it's featuring their best character, which is Mike Wazowski.
And I have to say, the impressionists for Sully and Mike did a pretty good job. And I said Mike probably like the person who plays Mike maybe not so much of it. I was like for a second, and maybe for Sully, I'm like, is that John Goodman? No, it can't be John Goodman. I
was surprised that they got James Woods for
He's been in every one of these games, man. Like from the beginning.
Fine.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that they employed him for this, but yeah, okay, yeah, I know. Don't worry, I'm not going to dwell on it.
Yeah, but that's where I've been. But also, it's in between that. I
it's a good place to be.
And it's worth picking if you're just. Again, I wouldn't recommend this unless you're already a relative fan of this game. But even then, as Dan's already explained, you're already ready to be very confused about who people are and what their relationships to other people are and what this is all supposed to be adding up to. But it is still, even with all the confusion and the long pauses and the bad writing, it's still a great time. Even in spite of all that, that's an amazing thing to say. Like, even in spite of all that, it's still worth playing because it's.
This sounds like every conversation I'd have with anyone who hasn't ever seen Twin Peaks. Like, trying to convince them to watch it. Like, there will be scenes where nothing happens, but I promise you it's amazing.
Diane, I'm holding in my hand a box of small chocolate buddies.
Yeah. Come on.
Watch Twin Peaks, folks. It's good stuff. But there was an anime that came out this season that I'd also wholeheartedly recommend that you go after. It's only a few episodes in yet, and it's based off a shonen manga called The Promised Neverland.
Yes, I've heard about this.
Oh, yeah. All of the Sakuga nerds on my Twitter feed have been going off about it.
Yes, and rightly so, because there are really lots of good shots. But the thing, even more so than the Sakuga, that's drawn me into it is the fact that it is a very different premise than most shonen series tend to go for. We still have spunky youth as the protagonists of the show, but it looks like the primary spunky youth is a chick, a young girl named Emma, which is already a plus for me. But then the whole premise of the show is that we have these children in this seemingly lovely little orphanage to this nanny who takes care of them. They call Mama, who takes care of them, from about 12 years of age and then all the way down to like babies. And they all live together. This happy little family, only for two of the children to discover, oh, no, wait. When kids are getting quote-unquote adopted, they are being sold as basically livestock for these monstrous demons who basically eat them for food. Mm-hmm. And their nanny or caretaker is in on the whole thing, and she
whoa.
Yeah, so these older kids basically have to figure out, okay, we need to find a way to escape this place, get away from here with as many people, or if not all of them, as we can, while it's already heavily implied that the caretaker knows that they know. So there's a lot of enjoyable, It
sounds like a series of unfortunate events.
A little bit.
Does it? It's,
We know that she knows that I know that they know.
Exactly.
Damn. We're all gonna die. The only thing I knew about this series going into it was I know that the manga had a kind of unfortunate depiction of an African American character in it.
Yeah.
I knew that people were a little apprehensive of if the anime was gonna do that. Mm-hmm. Has it?
I'm really not sure if I can speak to that, of whether or not how much. I mean, the character that they're showing, who is the character I think that you're referring to?
The sister.
Yeah.
Or someone.
Krone is this. Krone. Yeah, I know. The name's not flattering, and she herself is a very creepy character because, again, she is a character that's in on the whole, selling children to be food thing. But right. She is shown to be a much more, conspiring, almost like the, what's the word I'm looking for? The character that conspires against the big bad, basically saying that she's going to try and basically take the current caretaker's job.
Okay.
Because she's allowed these kids to find out about the secret, and she's not really doing anything actively to try and stop them, but she's just being very pragmatic about it. So it's hard to say in terms of that.
I feel like if you've seen it, I've seen some panels from the manga that are honestly stomach churning in how racist they are. So I feel like if you've seen it, you've seen it. If it's come up.
There's a really interesting. This is absolute fucking nitroglycerin to be talking about, to be handling. But I feel like as much as the images themselves might seem very racially loaded, there is a danger in applying Americocentric perspectives on everything.
But
so,
it's
for
not
instance,
like Japan has the best track.
Oh no! Don't get me wrong. I'm not for a second like defending it at all. But like I'm saying, I read an article about it that was really good actually. On let me find the name of the writer. Jackson P. Brown wrote about this character. And I
this
forgot
specific character.
Yeah, I forgot that I read this entire article. And it's very good, but there are a couple of things that, like, obviously, like she brought up, like gollywogs. You know, is that a term that you know?
I'm not familiar with it.
I think I've heard it, but
it's basically like a kind of like minstrel, like kind of racist caricature of like a of it's just a racist caricature basically that was very popular. Okay. It was very popular in the UK for a while, but the trouble is that it began
black people.
Well, it began as like this is the thing, like it began as obviously like a racist colonial like caricature, right? But it stuck around, and people like my mum grew up with them. These things were just on jam jars, and they were just mascots. They didn't mean anything really to anyone. But if you stopped and you thought about it for a second,
like Aunt Jemima pancake syrup, and things like that.
It was exactly that kind of thing, but even more abstract.
Yeah.
But like for instance, one of the things I think that's like interesting about all this is like in the debate about this whole thing, depictions of African Americans in manga, people like bring up things like Jinx from Pokemon.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who is like a massive yikes. If you're looking at. Yeah, but the thing is that like Jinx actually isn't intended to be seen that way. Jinx is like based on another Japanese like tradition.
We haven't really gotten confirmation exactly what Jinx. There's a lot of theories as to what Jinx is based on, but Nintendo and the Pokemon have never stated.
They would kind of be very dumb at this point to to say, oh yeah, that was meant to be
anything that gets out of hot water.
It's like Ganguro girl, but like Ganguro, the timing isn't correct for that. So, or it could be based on this creature in folklore, or maybe also like Grunhilda, or whatever. Like I don't know. The point wasn't about intention. It was about sometimes these things are done out of ignorance. And it's still something to be mindful of, regardless of whether or not the people making it knew what they were doing when they did it, or how it could be construed.
Yeah, but this is I think this is like a topic that is just like much bigger than is capable of being had on a podcast, particularly at the end. But I do think, But I'm
very curious of the show, and I heard really good things about it, and that was, I want to give it a chance to be what it is, because I've heard that it's excellent. I just, hope that the anime adaptation is a bit more mindful of the fact.
It seems already like they've made steps to correct,
which is great, and that makes me want to check it out, because I've only heard good things about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say if you can't, in terms of, because normally I'm not on the bandwagon when things come out like early in the season to be able to recommend any things, but I was in between watching new episodes of the second season of Mob Psycho 100. Which is always still great, still watch that if you haven't already. But I was looking for something else to watch, and I'm like, I've heard good things about this. I'll tune in, and I was very intrigued by how this is going to go, and almost to the point where I'm almost tempted to say maybe wait a little while on watching it, at least until the whole season has come out, perhaps, to see if you maybe just watch it in one fell swoop, or if say you can't really hold on to the anticipation of all the back and forth and mystery that surrounds this. If you're okay with the anticipation of waiting for when episodes come out, then you can tune in as soon as you can. But Otherwise, if you just want to wait till it all comes out, I would say that would also be a very valid way to watch this.
Yeah. Like, I know that pain of, like, trying to watch things simulcast, and then I can't. Like, I need it now.
Yeah, it's like,
or then I forget about it, and then it, like, the whole show goes by, and it's like, oh, darn it. I didn't mean to drop that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, those have been the two big things that have occupied my time outside of the Annie Awards and just Kingdom Hearts 3 and Promised Neverland. Two very different things, and very different levels, but still equally entertaining in their own right. So there you go. But right. I guess so. Is there anything you guys wanted to add before we start wrapping things up here?
My one final thing I want to add is that David Firth released a new episode of Salad Fingers this week.
Oh.
And it's incredible. It's still really, really good and just as disturbing and creepy and like delightfully gross as anything he's ever made. And if you like Salad Fingers, yeah, check it out.
Where can you watch Salad Fingers?
You can watch it on YouTube.
Okay, well, let's
Thankfully, yeah.
Make sure we'll see if we can include a link to that. If you would recommend leaving a link to that, or just basically find Salad Fingers here.
It was on the latest Web Animation Watch. On the
right.
site.
Okay. So I'll leave a link to that.
I saw that on the article. Yeah.
I will leave a link to that particular article then. So I think Chris did that, and I unfortunately missed that, so I'll have to make sure to go ahead and put that back on there. All right.
Yeah, I'm sure if Chris were here, like, we'd be going on for another 20 minutes about Salad Fingers.
Guess you guys have to do a Salad Fingers episode.
Mm-hmm.
We should, because there is some. I mean, there's some lore in there that is, almost as deep as Kingdom Hearts.
I'm not sure if I'm still trying to process. Trust me, I've been with that series for as long as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
Darn it all! If even there's stuff I forget every now and again, like, oh, all right, yeah. And one thing I like about the game so far is that it seems to be self-aware of that fact. Like, even characters in series are like, okay, who's this again?
Oh, that's quite nice, yeah. You kind of just need, like, that scene from Austin Powers 2 where Basil Exposition says, like, what is it? Austin Powers is like, what if I meet myself in the future? And he's like, and the guy just says, don't worry about it. And then he turns to the audience and he says, and you don't worry about it either. just have fun.
Whatever you say.
Yeah.
Oh man.
We just need to have like a supercut of that with Kingdom Hearts or Salad Fingers.
Yeah.
Oh, that does remind me of one of the things that I did watch this past week was the Steven Universe season finale.
Yes, I know. We need to have a full episode on that. I promise you. We'll discuss that later. But whenever you're willing to be free next, we'll try and make that happen. So, folks, if you're a Steven Universe fan of any type of Steven Universe fan, we will be very eager to talk about that with you in one of our upcoming episodes of the podcast. So
yeah, because I mean, there's plenty of time to catch up before it comes back from hiatus. So
Oh yeah. I think the hiatus won't end until like next fall. So there's plenty of time.
October. We have until October. So
All right. Unless there are any last minute things, I think we should be able to wrap up today's episode. So thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. Again, thank you big time to the folks at Animation First for such a wonderful, wonderful program. And thank you, Nita, for sharing your experiences with us.
You're welcome.
And
thank you for having me.
And thank everyone else for tuning in. So if you want to keep following us, if this is your first time tuning in, well, first of all, welcome. If you want to see more episodes, we'll be able to check the rest of our episodes just down there on the podcast tab on our website there at animationforadults.com. If you want to find us on any other podcast sites, we are on podcast.com, Podbean. We are also on Stitcher and as well as iTunes. Those are the big ones. You can follow Animation for Adults on a number of different social media sites. We're on Facebook. We are on Twitter at AFA Blog. We are on Instagram. We are on Pinterest, and I think there's one I'm forgetting. But I think I get Instagram, Pinterest. I always get Instagram, Pinterest. Tumblr, that was the one. The one that I have kind of stopped using for a long time, at least my personal one. So, but
and lots of people have.
Yes.
Lots of people I know have like stopped using, like artists have stopped using Tumblr, abandoned it, but like their feeds have been hacked. So I'll go and scroll on Tumblr, and it's just like a bunch of not porn, but just like sexy pictures.
Oh, I see.
Coming from artists that I follow, because everyone's just abandoned the place. It's like a ghost town.
Oh dear.
Because they are not good at running a website.
Nope. But regardless, we have it. It's there. But I would say if you're looking for a social media where we're actively updating, Facebook and Twitter are normally the big primary ones. So I would say if you want to keep an active follow on what we're doing, that is the best way to follow it.
The Twitter feed is very good.
Yes, and we had active updating on during the Annie Awards last night of when categories were announced and winners were announced. So that we have the lovely Dennery to thank for that. So
yeah, she does an awesome job running that feed.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Dennery. Hey, Dennery, if you're listening to this. So yeah, and also if you want to support us financially, because we've got some cool stuff that we're brewing up for the year of 2019, please go to any one of the links that we have here on the show notes for our Ko-Fi page, as well as our Patreon. If you just want to just donate $1 for a cup of coffee or any type of support, financial support, we would just definitely appreciate, because because we want to bring you guys more cool content and stuff and access to animation stuff, and basically I'll keep looking like a slight hint that maybe there might be some stuff brewing in terms of changing up the way we feature animation on the website, like for their web animation watch. So just give you a little snippet, but if you want more information, definitely become a patron and just become part of the conversation. So I think that should be about it. Well, how was it individual social media? So Dan, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Hamu.
All right. And Nina?
You can find me on Twitter at Ninian
And if you want to follow me personally on Twitter, my active Twitter account is at Rachael Ward at Fail2Ninja. Right now you're going to see either a lot of just retweets of the awards last night and a lot of Kingdom Hearts content. So just be prepared. Just be prepared for that if you're not at all familiar with that. But again, thanks everyone for tuning in for today's episode, and we will see you next time on the AFA podcast. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.